Welcome everyone to our webinar, Always Audit Ready for Continuous Compliance and Strategic Growth. We're excited to have you join us as we dive into simplifying audits and achieving continuous compliance with automation and data-driven strategies. This session is tailored for IT leaders, CISOs, and compliance officers tackling costly audits and complex regulations. Here's what you're going to find in store. You're going to get practical tips on automation and goal configuration management to boost compliance, real-world stories and successes from industry experts, and a look at how AI is transforming audit readiness for the future. With that, happy to dive right in and introduce our panelists. We are super excited to have three industry leaders with us today, each bringing unique expertise and insights to the conversation. Lokesh Aggarwal is the CEO of ApexaiQ, and he specializes in IT asset intelligence and cybersecurity risk management. He also has over 60 countries underneath his belt and a passport full of stories and unforgettable adventures. I'm sure you have a really good palate. Lokesh, what's been your favorite thing to eat?
Every place I went, it was a I would say adventure, as you said. That was the word. But I think the most favorite dish that I have, which is my personal favorite, is chicken biryani. And it's like a meal in itself. And since I had that first time in Hyderabad, I fell in love, and that's been my favorite since till today. So I love chicken biryani.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who doesn't. It's great. It's so good. And then we have Jamie Perry with us today as well. Jamie is the SVP and CSO at COCC, with over 15 years of experience in cybersecurity and compliance within a financial services industry. She loves CNC machining, especially working with wood, says it's the perfect blend of precision and creativity. Jamie, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so my dad, I learned from him. He started out as a machinist, and I thought it was very interesting to watch him work and create things. And so I wanted to take it upon my own and learn it as well. And so it's been a fun adventure, making things, trying new things out, and just inventing.
What's the favorite thing that you've made so far?
I have a real passion for making retirement gifts for military members. So I really like making, really nice plaques for them with their names on it, and so that they have something to remember their service by.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Also joining us is Sanjeev Kumar. Sanjeev is the CEO of Efficens Systems and Versatile, renowned for his expertise in cloud, AI, and cybersecurity. He's also met Michael Douglas and the Dalai Lama. What a unique mix between Hollywood charm and spiritual wisdom. So Sanjeev, like when you meet famous people, what's the first thing that you say?
You're on mute, my friend.
Yeah, Natalia, I was very blessed and fortunate to meet both of them, and they bring different perspective towards life. My first question is, what drives you? Right? What is the underlying driver behind everything which you do? And that question is geared more towards understanding the purpose. Right? And trust me, all these people, not only the Hollywood actor and a spiritual guru, but whomever you meet, they always bring certain perspective which is quite informative. Right? So when I met Michael Douglas during a campaign in the US, I said, okay, now you are almost 80 plus. What really drives your day-to-day activities? And the wisdom which he shared was quite profound. And Dalai Lama is at a different layer altogether. And everything, what he does is quite meaningful and deep-rooted in purpose, right? So very fortunate to meet both of them.
What a really cool experience. Did you meet them like near the same time, or was it like?
No, so I met Dalai Lama in 2014 in Delhi. And I met Michael Douglas in 2017 in Boston, right here.
Oh, cool. There's famous people in Boston. I like it. So I'm Natalia, VP of Channels and Alliances at Apexa. I'm the moderator for today, and I'm highly passionate, sometimes a little obsessive about designing AI prompts because I like to transform ideas into instructions that drive really impactful results. So let's just dive right into today's topic. Oh, wait, before we do that, we're going to take a quick poll because we'd love to hear from our audience. You can drop your answer in the chat. What is your biggest challenge in IT audits right now? Is it A, lack of single pane of glass for visibility? B, managing obsolescence tools or systems? C, addressing vulnerabilities and patching? D, integrating with your governance, risk, and compliance tools, GRC? Or E, all of the above? And I feel like I should have vanted that really well. I need a green screen behind me, Lokesh. So go ahead and type in your response and we'll collect and talk about that later. So IT audit success actually hinges on addressing critical challenges. Lokesh, if I can ask you, what are some of the biggest audit pain points organizations face?
I think, Natalia, the biggest challenge today is what I faced during my time at the largest bank that I work with was the fragmented and siloed IT, right? System that basically don't talk to each other, people don't talk to each other, shadow IT, and the scattered ownership among them, right? Which creates the blind spots across the organization, and it just make it hard to manage. And what you can manage, you can see, you can secure, right? And even you don't know what you actually have, right? So the kind of what challenges that you need or challenges to have a good unified real-time view of everything that you own, right? Which can be very, very segmentally, I would say logically segmented, like by business units, ownership, applications, locations, or any criticality that you can think of, right? It sounds very simple, but it is not an easy thing to do. It's a very complex thing to do, but I put them as a Lego layers, right? So this is your bottom layer, or I will call it a foundational for a Legos, right? Where you can add layers on top of it, and without this, security or anything else, right, or compliance or governance, they can't stand strong, right? So once you establish that particular base, then you focus on the hygiene, right? The second or third layer after base of great asset management, plus a great logical segmentation, and then you add an hygiene on top of that. Without it, basically you need to know what is end of life, right, on the hardware, software, or anything like that, and what is compliant to your security benchmarks, whether you have a gold configs deployed, standard operating systems are deployed, all that. And finally, right, where it comes in is the continuous automated compliance piece or governance piece that comes on top of it. But these are the biggest challenges, and I'd say it all starts with fragmented and siloed systems and not having a unified or integrated asset management platform is one of the biggest problems today.
Thank you. I know you worked in IT for over 18 years at two very large banks, and our whole entire panel's got a wealth of information, a wealth of history here. So can I ask you, what did compliance mean to you then versus now? Did anything change?
Absolutely. I'll give you a simple example of how we used to, I said, get ready for the audits, right? So the auditors are coming, right? This is one of the biggest thing. Even in a small bank, I think they get audited 1 to 3 times a year. And in the larger side, when I was at one of the largest bank managing audits there, was like 15 to 17 audits a year, whether it's internal or external audits, right? And we need to hire program manager, which will go to all the silos with the project managers from each and every fragmented, siloed IT environment and collect all the data, right? Put all the data into one single consolidated view. And at the end of the day, it's still a manual work. And it's a lot of work that we had to do on a repeatable process time, because last time the data that we collected is already outdated, right? And that process itself was a very manual and created a lot of problems, right? And the biggest problem that he created was that I cannot go in front of auditors with a confidence, say, I have everything, but I'm giving it to you. I know I'm giving you the right thing to do, right? That is the right thing to give it to you, but that was always the problem. But having a continuous as the things that you brought in, and automated governance, which combines everything, automatically segment everything, automatically enrich everything automatically, right? And give me a view that I can be very confident and proud of, right? And that view is very important to me. And if this is become a continuous and automated governance, this will ensure that our environment stays compliant and audit ready every day, not just once a year or twice a year or 3 times a year that we used to do.
Jamie, I see you shaking your head. Yes. So did you experience similar challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Lokesh and I are sort of like on the same wavelength here. Certainly with the continual compliance aspect of it. I think that for me, continual compliance is it's a cultural way of business, right? So, of course, it means adhering to all the laws, regulations, standards continuously, but I feel like you have to have the folks in those processes to understand and appreciate why behind those requirements, and those requirements exist for a reason. And, a lot of times folks, like Lokesh said, are always waiting till the last minute to get ready, waiting to the last minute and rushing to get ready for an internal audit, get ready for an examination. And once you show them the value of that continual compliance, they realize, hey, I don't have that stress on me anymore, because they can come and look at what I'm doing at any point in time, and really sort of changing that narrative for an organization, I think is huge. And that's, one of the values that I think, Apexa has brought us, is that, when we sort of instituted this sort of continual compliance culture, it helped us establish a lot of really great relationships in the organization with our examiners, with our internal auditors. No longer is it sort of looked at as an adversarial situation because, oh my gosh, you're making me have to hurry up and, work 60 hours this week to be prepared to show my asset inventory. So, being always ready, it is a huge impact, I think, to the organization.
Yeah, that's really good. So let me ask you, like you mentioned having a better relationship with your auditors. What did you mean?
Yeah, so, I think it goes back to the culture of compliance, right? So if you have the right tools and the right systems in place that allow you to show any point in time that you're doing the things that you're supposed to, they no longer look at internal audit is sort of an issue or an adversary, and instead are kind of proud to show what they have, right? They're proud to show, hey, we spent time putting this, asset inventory solution in place. Here's all the work that we've done, and we know that it's solid. We know that it's good, and we have the confidence to explain how it's operating. I think that sort of goes a long way when you're trying to sit down and speak to internal auditors or examiners about a process that you yourself are not confident in. It becomes a very difficult situation. And so when you remove those things, the conversations become so much easier.
Thank you. Sanjeev, kind of piggybacking off of what Jamie said, I'm really interested to get your take on tools, especially in today's landscape where workflows are unpredictable and there's all these technology advancements and they're coming like clockwork, right? What do you see kind of happening, with your clients and using your expertise in cloud technologies, right? And kind of in relation to what Jamie was saying there.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. The disadvantage of speaking behind all these eminent leaders is you are left with nothing. Right, everything is covered by Jamie and Lokesh. But let me bring my perspective. Right, if you look at, we are living in a different world. Right? We are not living in a world of, even 5 years, 10 years ago when, the IT was manifesting and the controls was manifesting through, call it a finite universe. Right? The dynamic risk landscape is evolving. And, if you look at, what has changed and how modern tools and capabilities are really enabling some of this forward-looking, right, future-looking competencies, the mindset has changed from the crisis-oriented mindset to resiliency-oriented mindset, right? That audit and compliance was always a crisis exercise, right? Is there something wrong? Right? Can I find it? Right? Can I find it in time? Right. So that mindset, if you go to the board of directors and talk about that crisis-oriented mindset, there is no business benefit of that. It is seen as the cost of doing business. However, the moment you change that narrative, going back to Jamie's point, that this is a resiliency mindset. If I do not build this continuous compliance competencies in my operating model, right, you may be out of business tomorrow. Right, that starts creating the value lenses, right, towards everything which you are doing. Obviously, this is not reactive in nature; it is proactive in nature, right? Even predictive in some senses. What is happening that with the emergence of a number of exponential innovations, right? So now we are talking about the artificial intelligence and data and cloud and the cyber resilience, all those things. There are immense benefit in terms of the speed of innovation, right? In terms of optionality, flexibility, and choices which you are making to really accelerate the business transformation at the core. These tools and capabilities are also coming with a lot of downside or unintended consequences. If you are going into the cloud, yes, you have extreme flexibility in terms of your consumption model and economics, but at the same time, what you're doing is there is a lot of data sprawl. There is a lot of basically credential sprawl. How do you manage those things through a procedural type of framework, right? Which always basically looks, conformant to certain regulatory principles, right? That is a checkboxing exercise. Right? If you have this type of ability within the automation tools, what is really powering the next generation of the mindset that how the audit process and how the compliance needs to be looked at. Obviously, the continuous compliance, the academic definition is that, can I build a process which is intelligent enough to capture the real-time telemetry through which I establish the health and hygiene of my critical assets? That's the definition. To enable that, also you want a number of capabilities which has the real-time instrumentation and telemetry to capture the data and event as they are happening. Right, that's where, obviously when Jamie says that now I have a better relationship with the auditor because I have taken the entire, call it the data processing or what we call data wrangling aspects that I have to go and collect multiple insights from multiple, the systems, and they needs to be stitched together. And then only I have the visibility or conformance, the attestation, right, around those controls. With the modern data pipelines, advanced inference through the AI, and the continuous inspections of my critical assets has just eliminated that. And there is no other way to do it. Right. So when it comes to, if you look at, the Apexai itself, right, that, this is not a snapshot, right? The snapshots are wallpapers, right? There is not real value because things are happening in the real life. Right, so the technologies which are really helping you or enabling you the accelerated business transformation is also creating some downside in terms of requirements where you have to manage, monitor them, almost like in real time. And this type of tools, which is basically giving you the real-time indications of the health and the status of those things, also some advisory in terms of what could happen. Right now, we are thinking about, the world of predictive maintenance. Right, even before something happens, can I take some, actions which prevents that? Right, on that. So I think, With the help of all these emerging technologies, whether those are deep data telemetry, inference in real time, and actioning conformant to your policy mandates or inference algorithms, which you are looking at, really basically, vaults the compliance and audit into a new, call it dynamic management of the risk vectors, which you really care about. And going forward, right, we are not living in a world of where, you are building a point solution which is fit for a purpose, right? We have to build something which is fit for future, right? Where the world will be 3 years from now. And this type of capabilities do give you the ability to manage and monitor those things with almost precision.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned a couple keywords there. You mentioned intelligent process, which I really liked. And then you talked about the framework of competency. So can I ask you to just expand on that a little bit more? Are you talking more about human error, slow data collection, or lack of scalability?
I think it's combination. This question is for me,
Yeah.
Natalia, or
Sorry.
for Jamie?
Yeah. For you.
Yeah. So
but
it's,
Jamie, feel free to chime in.
I think it's combination of everything, right? Yes, we want to think about, the call it pure autonomous systems, right? Which can do everything on its own, but there is basically, call it, certain degree of intelligence injections through the practitioners who have seen it, right? So, and this is obviously call it tools powered, right? Cognition enabled and human validated. Right. So in the world of now generative AI, you must have heard the RLHF processes, right? These are the reinforcement learning with the human feedback. Right. So obviously the tool is, and if you look at the autonomy, right, the way it has evolved, there are 5 stages of that with agentic AI sitting on the extreme, right? That everything are autonomous. What the tool is doing, it is absolutely relieving you from the data wrangling problem. Since I have the intelligence on all my critical assets to, create that type of visibility in real time, right? I do not have to stitch and go to the people and bring the data set and run the analytics. No, we are not living in that world, right? All that data wrangling problem is gone. I have a deep analytics, which is either policy enforced or inference activated, right? Where I know that what is happening and what needs to happen, right? To keep my infrastructure, data, application resilient, conformant to the zero trust mandates, right there. So obviously now you are bringing, the AI capabilities on top of that to give you actionable insights, and you are integrating that with the well-established workflow practices, right, which is conformant to your standard operating procedure. So the entire framework becomes quite autonomous, right? But obviously this framework is again a snapshot. It has to be a learning system, and that learning comes through the, call it acquired wisdom of the practitioners who have done this again and again. So call it, the best combination or symbiosis of the man-machine intelligence, right, which alleviates all the redundant work and gives you the next level of cognition to manage it better and do it with the, probably less head counts. I'm not saying that you have to basically, fire everyone. That's not the you are making it more productive for the people who are doing the work, right? And there is no other way to do that rather than really unleashing the power of extreme automation, deep data telemetry, and cognition at scale.
Yeah, thank you. So speaking of mandates, Jamie, you're living this world all the time, right? You're working in the financial sector, and the mandates there are like super stringent. So I guess my question to you is like, what do people forget, especially like when they're thinking about their IT governance?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if it's so much that they forget, is maybe there's a few things that they don't sort of think about. I think, I've learned certainly, compliance and financial services, it's not just about meeting rules, right? It's about building a proactive, adaptable framework that the regulators can trust. And my top strategies for that revolve around kind of 3 things, which is visibility, automation, and communication. And so you have to be able to provide them, the complete visibility into your IT environment, because if you can't comply with what you can't see, right? And that's where something like Apexa certainly comes in. It gives you, that real-time unified view of all assets, as Sanjeev mentioned, and so you're never blindsided by something that you don't know about. And second, the automation is key to just reducing that human error, keeping up with the pace of those regulatory demands. With Apexa automating the asset data collection and the compliance tracking, cutting out all that manual grind and just letting us focus on our strategy instead of manual spreadsheets and manual processes. Being able to have that clear communication with the regulators is critical. And by putting something like this in place, they can see a process that they can follow and understand. And being able to show them things like, Apexa's dashboarding or reporting is so easy to show them how we're aligning with the standards to turn, this complex set of data into a story that regulators can trust. Over the years, I've seen these, types of strategies turn compliance from a burden into, a competitive edge. And you have to be able to really lay out to them in a very understandable way how the process is working. When you sort of have these complexities of what we've been talking about, pulling data from all these places and trying to manually put it together, they have no confidence in those sort of things. As soon as you say there's a human element into it, they kind of throw it out and say, okay, well, we know it's going to be wrong, right? And so being able to just take even that piece out of the equation in a conversation with a regulator is huge.
Wow, thank you. That's pretty good.
I'll say that, Natalia, stay ahead of regulators is the key component in that, right? And people, process, and platform, they're the 3 Ps that I look into all the time, but I learned pretty good from you. Visibility, automation, and communication. I think, Jamie, I'm going to use this a lot. I think people should listen to that, what you just said. This is a very, very important point that you made. So thank you.
Yeah, so Jamie, how do you, it's one thing to have that for your auditors, but how does this spread out throughout your organization? What does that allow you to do?
Yeah, sure. So, I'll use the, end of life, end of support challenges, that we have as an organization, and something that we definitely use this for. So, in the financial services, as you can imagine, customers expect uptime and security 24/7. And, Apex has been a game changer here, just knowing exactly what's in the environment, down to the device version, all of that information, pulling the enriched data, and integrating it with, vulnerability compliance information. We're not scrambling. And so we're able to plan ahead on everything that we're doing before it lapses, before it prioritizing critical things appropriately. We have, just like any organization, we have strict schedules that we have to adhere to for maintenance and things like that. And it's, it's a complex thing when you're managing end of life, because it's not just replacing a device, right? It's, reducing the impact and the downtime to the customers. So that has been extremely helpful for us in our organization. And, also with that end of life information, what Apex has really helped is the conversation with my CFO. So it is so easy for me to take the information from the dashboard. Our CFOs are not tech guys, but you need to have those conversations about hardware refreshes and when you need to have replacement schedules, and being able to have very simple, easy data for that CFO to look at puts all the confidence that you're not overinflating budgetary numbers or anything like that. And it becomes just a very simple conversation. And same goes with the board. Not every board member is tech savvy, and being able to put things into quantifiable terms to them in simple ways is awesome. Even when you think about migrations, Windows 10 to Windows 11, that process and the progress, I'm able to get that information in like a minute compared to it would have taken days for me to understand, are we at 20%, 30%, 50%? Where are we in our progress? So, it has really helped a lot of operational things for us at COCC, I would say. And, they sound like simple things, but when you sit back and you think about organizations, this is what we all struggle with.
Yeah, thank you. So I know it helps with the information on demand, which is super critical. Thank you for that. What about the depth of information? Like, does it matter how much information that you're getting from something, or is like just baseline information enough? Like, how deep do you want your info to go?
Yeah, honestly, I think it depends on the audience, right? If it's me, I want something super high level that's, not too detailed. Just give me a graph, I'm great. But of course, our technology guys have really leveraged the depth of the information in this. So to give an example, through our vulnerability process, we're able to exactly know who that owner of that asset is and go and talk to them about remediating a vulnerability. Whereas a number of years ago, it was sort of like, I don't know what this device is. Who owns this? Where does this live? And those sort of, that depth of information has really aided a lot of our processes in being more intelligent on just the assets that we own in our environment.
Yeah, thank you. It brings me to my question over to you, Lokesh. So, clearly asset intelligence is important. Why do you think it's the foundation for a strong compliance strategy, and then helping use that amount of information for audit success?
I think Jamie covered that pretty in that, right? I can't top that for sure. But I would say, the word that she used was confidence, right? It gives us the confidence, right? And I've been give you a couple of examples. I'll just convert that into examples, not just Jamie's one, but others that we have, right? They're saying that they are able to get better sleep with this, right? They are able to get a better rest, better sleep, work-life balance is better, right? And Sanjeev said it's not about reducing the head count, right? There is always going to be a people or human interaction always needed, their intelligence always needed into any automation that we bring into there. But people are always going to be there. They're always going to be very, very important. But at the same time, having a work-life balance for them is very important, right? So having a platform or having something asset assurance for which can be used as a board reports, right? As at a high level where CISO can just go. And I'll touch base maybe in a later section about where Sanjeev started on the agentic AI path a little bit as well, right? And something that we are bringing into the platform as well, right? And I'll touch base on that one. But the key thing I'd say is the confidence, right? Having a good confidence on the data that you have, having a peace of mind, and having a work-life balance, which all comes down to ultimately, reduce risk by scale and cost saving. So very, very important things.
Yeah, thank you. So Sanjeev, let me ask you, what kind of advice would you give to companies looking to maintain that same level of compliance, right, as they're trying to modernize their IT operations?
I think just build this capabilities intrinsically, right? In your foundational infrastructure as you are rolling it out, rather than an overlay. Right? And I think that point came very nicely through Jamie, because if you ask the fundamental question, what is the intent of it all? Right? Why do we want to do things differently? The intent is, obviously you are generating something which is deeply fact-based. Right? You are capturing the fact there is no opinion or subjectivity there. Right? You are getting, the factual data from there, which is guiding towards basically call it, the corporate decisions in terms of what is your modernization migration pathway looks like. It also basically accelerating the culture of collaboration. right? That whoever are the operators and the tranches, which is doing different things, right? Because obviously they have to do the patching, they have to do the monitoring management, whatever it is. Now that role and responsibility is pretty much defined, right? That what basically falls under your, the span of control and what you are supposed to do. There in the process, there is some unintended benefits, right? So think about a landscape where, many people do not know about the hidden assets and nobody has the comprehensive view of every asset which you really care about. This type of capability which ApexaiQ brings, this is also dynamically generating a CMDB, right? A dynamic CMDB, right? As you are bringing more and more assets there. So what you have created, really, really high quality, asset inventory or the catalog of these things. You have basically assigned the ownership, right? Who is responsible, and you are guiding them through forward-looking advisement that, how do you really keep it, the safe, secure, compliant, all those things. And then you can do the budget planning in terms of what needs to happen, right? In terms of the retirement, sunsetting, or bringing new type of assets. So the entire life cycle of keeping this infrastructure up to a degree of resiliency which is required is met. And those are met automatically from this, the system and the capabilities which came intrinsically rather than people basically, again, stitching this left and right. Profound message, right? And the way Apexai is built, which is persona-based, right? So if you want to give the message to the executive, the board, right? Obviously, they are more interested in where you want to make the spend and what is the rationale behind those things. You have that view. They do not go beyond that, right? So it is, why we are doing this, what the advantages or the business outcomes it is really enabling. That is their lenses. You go to the next layer, which is obviously call it the IT decision makers and the CISOs, right, and chief operating officers. They are looking at that. Yes, I can basically expand my business and keep my the infrastructure resilient. That is their concern. And when it comes to the actual execution of this works, you have the operators who have complete visibility and intelligence around that when, why, and how they are going to do these things. This is best of the both worlds.
Thank you.
And I'll add to that, right,
Yeah.
Natalia, without this foundation in place, right, everything else like governance, security, lifecycle management, they all becomes reactive instead of proactive, right? That's what the key is. And I'll give you an example. I think people who are listening, it will resonate with them, is like in my when I was going to the board and to the senior management for budget, right? I would go and say I need X dollars. They will say we'll give you 5% or 10% of that, right? What can you do with it, and how it will affect an overall picture of our organization or business units, and how is it affecting an overall? And I had no answer. I could not quantify that question into any answers, right? So having that picture, going with a very big confidence and say, this is where we are, this is what we need. If we do this much, this is how it will affect us, right? And while we are doing it, we can track it, right? So they know where the money is going, just not just the money, but where the resources and their utilization is going into the organization, right? How it is quantified and that can be also tracked on there, right? So it's a proactive versus reactive reaction is what it gives it to everybody else. So just I hope that addition will resonate with people, because this was one of the biggest thing is like going to the board with some kind of a budget and we never get that total amount.
Yeah, it sounds like you got some good key lessons there. Jamie, I know you go through the audits every single year. What kind of lessons do you think other IT leaders can take away from your experience?
Yeah, I think, I think it goes back to a number of things that I said before, which is really, you have to have something that gives them confidence in your process. If you're not confident in it, they certainly won't be confident in it. And, when we started down this path with Apexa, our regulators were not confident in our asset management program. We weren't confident in it, certainly. And, you know, what I found was that the way that the tool goes together to help us solve that challenge was perfect. You know, regulators are very much show your homework type of people, right? And so it was easy to answer the challenge of, well, show us that this is working properly. It's very easy. Okay, sure. Here's where the information's coming from. It's coming from all these source systems. You know, go take a look. You're not going to find anything different. Go ahead. You can look at it. But, you know, one of the strategies that we took, especially with this tool, is that instead of just giving our regulators a list and saying, here's a list of our assets, which kind of has traditionally been the way of the process, we said, no, we're going to let you take a look at the tool. We're going to let you see the functionality of the tool. We're going to let you see what all it can do, and we're going to walk through it with you. And that gave them the ability to ask the myriad of questions that they wanted to get that confidence that, okay, this is solving their problem and this is meeting their needs. You know, I think oftentimes where folks are very hesitant to let regulators into that sort of window, right? Very much, let's give them a PowerPoint, let's give them a static report, those sort of things. But, you know, if I would have just given my regulators what I gave the board every quarter, that would have painted such a small picture of what that tool does and its capabilities and what Apexa can provide. And so when we went down that path, you know, the first year that we introduced Apexa into the environment, we spent a number of hours with the regulators asking they asked every possible question they could, look through the tool. And then, you know what, the next year they go, I know what this is about. I know exactly what this is. I have confidence that you're doing it well. So they asked a little less questions. And then the third year, guess what? They hardly had any questions because they say, I know how this tool works. We have confidence in this process. And we know everything about it. And we've had the ability to investigate it, ask the questions. And, you know, so, you know, my advice is when you go through those things and you have a tool that you have confidence in, open it up, let them see it.
Can I add, Natalia, into that? First thing, Jamie, thank you very much. The second, it's not just about the tool, right? It's about building the foundation. We have worked with COCC and your team for the past 3 years very closely, and you have built the foundation, right? It's the base layer of Lego bricks that I talked about, right? And without, if it is not stable, nothing that we built on top can last. So kudos to you and your team. I had to say it, but it has been not just about the tool, it's about the foundation that you have built on top of that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Lokesh. You know, we've worked together, you know, quite a bit, you know, through that process, and I am extremely grateful. You know, it was, I was absolutely elated to have a few years now in a row with absolutely no issues or findings, and that certainly was instrumental from Apexa. So.
Oh, that's really awesome to hear it. And I think it kind of goes along with what Sanjeev said earlier, which is understand your why. That's a great top strategy for audit success. And I think you just brought a whole different lens to actually how I was thinking auditing could work, right? So I really appreciate that. Thank you. We're going to move on to questions from the audience.
So while they are typing their questions, you know, this was really enlightening for me, Jamie, right? Because, you know, obviously you summarized it very well, right? That, you know, ultimately you want to create the high degree of confidence with, you know, auditors, regulators, that, you know, we are giving you a high fidelity information. And by the way, right, you have the ability to independently verify it at any point of time. The foundation of that, the confidence, is built on the trust and transparency. right? And as long as this tool is capable to provide you that degree of transparency with everything, right, then you don't have to do much. Right, because the auditors, when they so we all have been in the financial industry. The moment you get some MRA and MRIA, right, that those matters requiring attention or immediate attention, the approach is quite a defensive approach. Right, we start almost treating these auditors as another adversary, right, which they are not. Right.
Yeah.
But once you demonstrate that now we have a very scientific, repeatable, and quantitative mechanism, right, through which I am really, enhancing my, risk postures or, compliance postures, this creates intrinsic confidence in that relationship. And next year when they show up, they know, they will tell you, as they have been telling you, that no, we know that you have the tooling, you have the platform, you have the capability, you have the foundation to produce the evidence of intrinsic attestations towards those controls which you care about, and we trust you. Right, because it's right here, database. That's very profound. We have seen in the financial services, like Lokesh can talk to this, when we were working in different financial institutions. Right, the moment you build this type of provenance lineage attestation, right, towards the controls which they really care, they say that maybe I do not have to visit you in 6 months. I will see you next year because you are doing everything right. Right there, and that's a win, right? That's the goal. That's the goal of everything. And so I want to go into the platform like Apex, right? Really powers those type of capability. But at the end of the day, it's not about the tooling. It's all about the outcomes. What outcomes you really accomplished, and are there demonstrated evidence of those outcomes?
Yeah, so one of the questions that just came in the chat was actually in regards to an outcome, and that was breaking down silos, across auditing teams. So what's the best way to kind of improve that collaboration? I guess it goes out to the group.
Jamie, you go through this on a daily basis now, so why don't you take that?
Yeah, I'm sort of digesting the question a little bit. So silos amongst auditing teams. Yeah, so I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that, when it comes to, oh, go ahead, Lokesh.
I think it's meant to how the siloed within the IT or security affects the auditors and auditors' outcome from that perspective. I think that would be a much, if that's the intent of the question there. But the regulators and the auditors are regulators and auditors, right? They are very experienced people. They are ex-IT managers in some cases, right? And they have done their homework, and they go to a different banks and ask almost same questions to every one of them. The key barrier, as it was mentioned earlier, was how can we take care of the fragmented systems, take care of the siloed environment within the company, and consolidate that data that we can very confidently give it to the auditors. And I think that would be a much better outcome of that from that perspective. I don't know if you want to add something on top of that.
Yeah. So in that sort of lens, thanks, Lokesh. Thinking about that, one of the challenges that I faced is, if people don't understand the why behind what they're doing, it becomes very challenging. And so, oftentimes I find in technology, regulators, auditors, external auditors, whatever it is, they just look at them as a nuisance. And when the reality is, and maybe this is my former regulator coming out, but everything that internal audit or regulators or whomever is asking you to do, there's a reason. There's a reason that they're asking you to do it. And it's not just to be a checkbox. There's actual value to most of these things. And to me, in some of my experience in my organization, is breaking down the silo between technology and audit and regulatory requires that re-education of people, of saying, okay, why don't you want to do X, Y, and Z? Wouldn't you agree that it's a good security practice or a good technology practice? Yes. Okay, so then what does it matter that you have to do it as a requirement? I find that a lot when certainly you're working with compliance frameworks, right? People look at the different line items on the compliance frameworks, and they just look at them very individually and not at the larger picture. And I think once you start to have those conversations with the IT folks about that part, then it really breaks down the silos between them and regulators and auditors. Certainly as a technology person, I'm sensitive to it, but sometimes technology people get so focused on the technology and not on the overall big picture in the business, because they're very technical folks focused exactly on what they need to accomplish.
And they are very experienced because they have done that with so many companies, and they have learned that from doing that with so many different kind of group of peoples and group of silos within the company. So I agree.
Yeah, I think there is evolving aspect of this, and if this question goes towards that, so Jamie, you're absolutely right that what you are doing from all those conformance points of view, everything has a value, right? That why it needs to be done. When you look at the individual obligations of different audit teams, right? And if you take the obviously the lenses that what is the first line of defense, second line of defense, and third line of defense, right? Within the organization, the first line of defense is always business centric. Right, that are my business processes running with the efficacy, accuracy, and uptime, right, which is required, so that there is no client customer, implications. And when it comes to, so this is almost a functional decomposition view of the high level business controls, which manifest towards a number of technical controls and execution and evidence of those controls, either through system or human. Right? How do you really bring this different type of audits in a unified governance framework, right? So that, obviously everybody is moving towards the same end goal. And while you are executing the bottom up, right, producing this type of evidence and data points, how that can be done in a unified fashion rather than the team oriented or the roles oriented functions, right? And this framework is evolving. Many organizations, if you look at that, the latest framework around, what compliance should address, if you have the AI workloads, it is basically, using a lot of energy. Now one part of the audit is also, let's do the audit energy, whether you are conformant with the ESG mandates or not, right? It is non-negotiable if you go to Middle East, right? Singapore, those countries, right? There is another audit lens in terms of the actual consumptions of the things in the compute, right? Many auditors have not started looking from that perspective, but obviously you have to look from evolving framework perspective where audit is an unified exercise, irrespective of whether it is business control oriented, technology control oriented, cyber control oriented, and how the responding team is organized so that they are not operating in the fractured silos.
Yeah, so just kind of thinking through that a little bit. I think what you said there was key, because not only is auditing constant and having to keep up with that information needs to be dynamic, so it's continuous monitoring, but so is the lens in which we view it from. So I really liked what you said when you talked about re-education. I think that was key. So just a recap, because we're nearing the end here, some closing remarks and key takeaways. We went over how to make compliance simple, staying audit ready year round, and it's possible through automation and real-time insights. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing, and same to Sanjeev. We really appreciate it. We talked about smart tools for big wins, AI automation, and then shared some real-world tips and some expert strategies, especially when it comes to removing, as you like to say, Lokesh, fragmented systems. The era of fragmented systems is over. You got to remove those silos, right? A little bit about ApexaiQ. So our mission is to just help empower organizations to stay secure, compliant, and ready for the future. It's more than just about managing assets. It's about having a continuous cycle of confidence that you're always audit ready. And with that, the last couple minutes we have, I would love to hear about the future, AI, agentic, everything's AI. You know, I'm obsessed with it, so I'd love to hear from you guys.
I'll give 2 lines of that, right? And the 3 things I thought that has stuck with me: visibility, automation, and communication, right? That Jamie mentioned earlier, right? What if we make that and give you agents that never sleeps, right? And the workers that never sleeps and do that work for you, right? The reports that you wanted are automatically sent to you with the way you think that you have agents or the workers or employees or virtual employees that are working for you, right? And they are creating that report, whether it's a board report that you need, or whether it's a report that you need to send it as a risk-based vulnerability prioritization that you need to send it to your IT team to go fix or prioritized way, or an end-of-life information that you need to send it to your procurement or things. These workers are working for you and an agentic AI into the platform. So you have the visibility, automated visibility, you have an automation built into it, and the communication is happening automatically. So that's the future in the item, in CASM, in vulnerability and prioritization, patching prioritization that we're bringing using agentic AI. Stay tuned to that. Within a month or so, we will be making a big announcement. So that's, I think, is the future of what CISO wants, what CIO wants, what IT managers wants, or the engineers wants, right? Give them a tool, give them agents, give them a workers that never sleeps, and keep them compliant all the time.
Thank you. Jamie, any thoughts on the future?
Yeah, it's funny because, Lokesh was just identifying what CISOs want, and I think he's just reading my mind here. Certainly, the future is absolutely AI, for sure, 100%. And, I think over time, we're going to see things evolve, how we, look at compliance. I think over time, AI is going to fully converge security and compliance into a single seamless discipline. I really do. And the days of, siloed teams chasing separate checklists, those are numbered. Bringing, I think I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, what is my ideal, world? And I'm thinking about all the information out there where we have, asset information, vulnerability information, threat intel, criticality, behavior analytics, regulatory requirements, posture information, configure information, predictive trends, all of those sort of things. In my mind, eventually will all be pulled together, and Apex is laying the foundation for this sort of innovation, which is absolutely fantastic, and really that's where things are going. And to Lokesh's point, I actually was just having this conversation the other day where it's to be able to have a natural language conversation with something and say, I want to know about XYZ is huge. Certainly today, when you look at, AI adoption for helping coding and for helping these various different things, it's lowering the barrier of entry of skill sets for individuals, right? So now I can have an entry level person come in and just say, tell me, what are my highest risk assets? And they don't have to spend 20 minutes trying to figure out a syntax of how to put that in there. And those sort of things are, to me, are really going to be game changers. We're going to have folks that are come up to speed so much more quickly, when they're coming into the industry, and being able to pull all of this information is, it's my dream world at the end of the day.
That's awesome. And Sanjeev, I got to ask you, I believe that you are from the future and you came back to travel and to teach us all about AI, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on predictions of coming into even next year.
Yeah, just 2 sentiments here that, the age and era of, this random set of tools brought by random people and assembled by superhumans is no longer a relevant world. we have to do something different, right? And, obviously, Jamie came with something which is called VAC, VAC, right? The visibility, automation, and communication. I would extend it and say it's lighter notes now, vacuum. How about that? Right?
Yes.
Visibility, automation, communications with curation of the data, unification of the intelligence, and central management. Right on that. So I think, look, agentic, Lokesh and all of you know pretty well that we are on the quite advanced edge of these things, right? We have the IPs and platforms. We are joining forces, right? Because, the by nature, agenting is autonomous. And that's what we have been talking about, right? That basically relieve everyone from doing this random set of things, from random tooling, random team structures, bring that as a managed unified framework. And this type of core capabilities in terms of, deep telemetry, in terms of, the predictions, and in terms of actioning is all being encapsulated in an agentic platform, say, called ApexaiQ Agentic, our own tooling, right, bundled together, which brings the power of everything. And then it is, going to be delivered to, all our wonderful customers like Jamie.
That's cool.
Right, so very excited.
Yeah, land of interoperability is like here. So I'm excited. Well, thank you all for your time. And, thank you to our guests that have joined. We invite you, if you want to learn more, to get a demo with Apexai. You can contact us directly. And if there's any questions you have, feel free to hit us up. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
you.
all.